When Daniel and Leah Reece moved into their modest brick home on Pine Grove Lane, all they expected was a fresh start. Daniel had recently retired from paramedic work after a neck injury on the job, and Leah was excited to work remotely as a freelance graphic designer. Their new home wasn't a mansion, but it was peaceful, quiet, and just far enough from the city to breathe. 3 months in, and they finally felt settled until Daniel found a thick yellow envelope duct taped to their mailbox. He peeled it off, expecting junk mail, but the bold red letters on the front froze him in place. Notice of violation, Willowbrook HOA total due, $345, unauthorized exterior modifications. Daniel furrowed his brow and scanned the paper. The supposed modification, a porch swing. He looked back at the porch. It was the same swing that came with the house when they bought it, the same one their real estate agent had complimented. Daniel calling out, "Leah, come check this out." She came outside, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Leah, what's that?" "Daniel, it's a violation notice from an HOA." "Leah, HOA? I thought the street didn't have one." "Daniel, exactly." They rushed inside and pulled out the thick folder of real estate documents. Leah flipped through the purchase agreement, title deed, and property disclosures. Leah reading, no mention of any HOA. "We specifically asked about this, remember?" "Daniel, yeah, because I said the one thing I didn't want was a bunch of people telling us what kind of flowers we can plant before they could process it further." A sharp knock hit the door. Daniel opened it to find a woman in her late 50s, standing confidently on the porch. She wore a pale pink windbreaker and held a clipboard like it was a badge of authority. "Karen. Hi, I'm Karen Stokes. I'm the president of the Willowbrook HOA. Just wanted to make sure you got your notice." "Daniel, yeah, we got it. We're confused, though we were told this area wasn't part of any HOA." Karen smiling tightly. "Well, it wasn't until about 3 years ago. Willowbrook filed an annexation to extend our jurisdiction to include Pine Grove Lane. Perfectly legal, Leah. But we were never told. It's not in any of our paperwork." "Karen, unfortunately, that's not our responsibility. The annexation was posted publicly. It's your duty to stay informed. Now, that swing cute as it is violates our uniformity clause. All porch furnishings must be HOA approved." "Daniel, this swing came with the house." "Karen, doesn't matter. It should have been removed before resale. We'll need payment within 10 days, or additional fines may apply." Narrator. With that, Karen turned on her heel and walked down the driveway like she owned it. Daniel watched her go, disbelief painted on his face. "Daniel," she said, "they annexed the street." "Leah, that doesn't even sound legal." The couple called their real estate agent, who sounded just as baffled. She claimed there was no record of an HOA attached to the listing when it was sold, but she promised to double-check. That night, Daniel walked across the street to speak with a neighbor who was working on a classic truck in his driveway. "Daniel, hey, I'm Daniel. My wife and I just moved into the red brick place." Neighbor, Tom. "Wells, welcome." "Daniel, quick question, did you know this street was in an HOA?" Tom chuckling darkly. "Oh, you met Karen? Huh?" Daniel, "Got a violation notice for our porch swing." Tom, "She tried that with me. Said my garage lights were too bright." Truth is, we all got blindsided. They filed the annexation through the county like it was a property line adjustment. No vote, just paperwork. Most of us didn't even know until the notices started rolling in." Daniel, "That can't be legal." Tom, "Maybe not. But they've got the county's rubber stamp, and she uses it like a weapon." Narrator. Daniel walked back home, heart pounding, mind racing. He wasn't just dealing with a misunderstanding. This was deliberate. And Karen, she didn't come bearing welcome cookies. She came with fines, fees, and control. And the war was just beginning. The next morning, Daniel stood at the kitchen counter, stirring his coffee, staring blankly at the violation notice. Leah, she taped another envelope to the mailbox. He opened it slowly. Another violation. Another fine, this time. Unpaid dues, $528 plus late fees. Daniel, we haven't even been informed of any dues. Beneath the fine print was a cold warning. Failure to pay within 10 business days may result in legal escalation or property lien. Daniel's hands clenched the paper. He looked at Leah. I'm calling her. He walked out to the porch and dialed the number listed. After a few rings, Karen answered, chipper as ever. Karen on phone. This is Karen Stokes, HOA president. Daniel, this is Daniel Reece, 217 Pine Grove Lane. We received another notice now about dues. Karen, yes, HOA dues are $176 per month, due the first of each month. You've missed 3. Daniel, we weren't told about this HOA. We never signed anything, no disclosures, nothing on record. Karen flatly, we have records indicating your property was annexed in 2020. It's all legal. In fact, I can drop off a copy of the filing this afternoon. Sure enough, less than 2 hours later, Karen returned clipboard and hand holding a printed form with several signatures. Daniel sat on the porch steps while she presented the paper like it was sacred scripture. Karen, this is the annexation approval. It includes signatures from homeowners and original HOA members. Your lot C here was included in the boundary extension. She pointed at a section labeled Pine Grove Inclusion. Block C. Daniel, who signed for this property. Karen tapped a signature. Karen, that's from Mr. Callahan, the previous owner. He signed in 2021. Leah leaned over and looked. Leah, that doesn't even look like his name. And it's not notarized. Karen shrugged. Karen, look, whether you were aware or not, the annexation is filed with the county. That makes it binding. You're responsible for all dues and compliance now. It's not my job to babysit closing documents. Karen turned and walked away, again like a judge walking out of a courtroom. Daniel stared at the signature. It looked shaky, faintly off. He walked back inside. Daniel, I want to talk to Callahan. Leah, if he's reachable, we can ask the realtor. Later that evening, Daniel called their real estate agent, Stephanie. Stephanie, I've never seen this HOA listed in any of the title documents, but I'll pull the county filing. Maybe something slipped through. An hour later, she called back. Her voice was tight. Stephanie, I found it. The annexation paperwork is there. It's technically valid, but it's sketchy. It wasn't circulated publicly. It was tacked onto a zoning adjustment the HOA made. One paragraph in a 40-page PDF. Your property was lumped in with it, Daniel. So no vote. Stephanie, no public vote. Just an executive filing. It's legal, but it's barely transparent. The next day, Daniel took a walk around the block. He knocked on a few doors. Most people answered cautiously. Some just shook their heads when they heard HOA. But one neighbor, Tom Wells, a gruff man with an American flag on his gift and a quiet dog named Whiskey, invited him in. Tom, she's been doing this to everyone since they made her president. Fines for everything. My buddy down the street got a $600 bill because his kids left their bikes in the driveway for an hour. Daniel, why doesn't anyone push back? Tom, they try. She controls the board. One of them's her cousin. Another, her husband's coworker. You show up to the meeting, she shuts you down. Daniel, there's got to be a way to fight it, Tom, only if you've got time, money, and patience. Most folks just pay to avoid the headache. Daniel walked home that night thinking about every red cent they'd spent building a new life here. How quickly it all turned to stress, threats, confusion, power games. Leah looking at a new envelope in her hand. She's not letting up. Inside the envelope, a new notice for non-compliant lighting fixtures. Daniel, none of this is about rules. It's about control. He walked into his office, opened his laptop, and began organizing every notice, every photo, every copy of HOA filings he could find. He wasn't just going to roll over, he was going to fight fire with paper, but he had no idea how deep Karen's reach really went. By week 4, The Reece family mailbox had become less a place for mail and more a battlefield. Each day brought a new envelope, each one more absurd than the last. Tuesday, violation. Improper mailbox color. Wednesday, violation. Yard overgrowth exceeding 3.5 inches. Thursday, warning. Vehicle parked facing wrong direction in driveway. Daniel had had enough. Daniel muttering, "It's my own damn driveway." That night, he installed a new set of cameras, this time with cloud storage and night vision. He mounted one over the garage, one above the porch, and one in the backyard. The very next morning, Daniel found his windshield plastered with a bright green sticker. Violation. Improper vehicle storage. Pickup truck must be garaged or covered at all times. Fine. $150. Karen was standing across the street, arms folded, watching him. Daniel calling out, "Are you serious right now?" She didn't answer, just turned and walked toward her house, slow and smug. When Leah came home later that day, Daniel showed her the footage. Karen had walked right up to the truck at 6:12 a.m., taken a photo, and placed the sticker while smirking into the camera. Leah shaking her head. She knows exactly what she's doing. Daniel picked up his phone and texted Tom, "Time to compare fines. You up?" Tom's reply came back instantly. "Grab a six-pack and come over." Tom's garage had turned into a kind of underground resistance cell. On a fold-out table, Tom had stacked HOA notices, letters, and printed photos from neighbors all over Pine Grove. "Tom, she hit me with one for putting my trash can out too early. You know what time? 7:45 p.m. the night before trash day." He handed Daniel a photo Karen had submitted to the HOA board, timestamp and dated. "Tom, she drives around at night taking these. Her phone's full of evidence. She even tried finding Barb for her Halloween lights staying up till long." Daniel rubbed his forehead. "Daniel, she's running this place like a surveillance state." "Tom, worse. At least the government needs warrants." That night, Daniel created a spreadsheet. He logged every notice: date, violation type, time of day, amount due. He labeled photos and lined them up beside the HOA bylaws he found on the Willowbrook website. And that's when something caught his attention. In the bylaws section titled Enforcement and Penalties, a clause read, "Any action against a homeowner must be preceded by a written warning and a 7-day grace period for correction." But Karen's notices didn't include warnings. Not one of them. "Leah, she's skipping the process." Daniel, and if she's skipping this part, what else is she bending? The next HOA board meeting was announced via a small flyer stuck near the community park. Daniel and Leah planned to attend. Tom to. The meeting was held in a dull beige room inside a local church. A long folding table sat at the front, with Karen seated in the center like a queen presiding over a reluctant court. She adjusted her glasses and tapped the microphone. "Karen, meeting will now come to order. Let's begin with budget updates and compliance notices." She spoke for nearly 20 minutes before finally opening the floor. "Karen, public comments 2 minutes per household." Daniel raised his hand. Karen sighed. "Karen, yes, Mr. Reece." He stood, paper in hand. "Daniel, I've documented 8 violation notices. None included warnings, according to your own bylaws. That makes them unenforceable." Karen's eyes narrowed. "Karen, that's your interpretation. We have a different reading." "Daniel, there's no ambiguity. It's written in plain English." Karen gave a condescending smile. "Karen, we're not going to debate legalese in a community forum. If you have a grievance, submit it in writing." Several neighbors murmured in agreement with Daniel. Tom stood and handed Karen his own stack of papers. "Tom, here's my grievance. 10 fines, no warnings. You're abusing this process." Karen's voice rose. "Karen, this is not a rebellion. Gentlemen, we are here to maintain order." But the tension was thick. People whispered. Others stood up, emboldened. Karen gavelled the table. "Karen, this meeting is over." And just like that, she walked out, papers in hand, leaving the room stunned. Outside the church, Daniel turned to Leah and Tom. "Daniel, she's used to everyone backing down. Leah, she's not going to stop Tom. Then we don't stop, either. The neighborhood wasn't fully awake yet, but the fuse had been lit. And Karen had no idea how fast that fire was about to spread. 3 days after the explosive HOA meeting, Daniel opened his mailbox to find something far more serious than a neon sign. A thick, formal envelope bearing the seal of Daniel and Associates, a local law firm notorious for one thing: HOA enforcement. Inside was a letter, crisp and cold. Final. Demand. Immediate payment of outstanding HOA dues and violation penalties. $3,235. Failure to remit payment within 5 business days will result in legal action, including, but not limited to, the filing of a lien on your property. Daniel sat down at the kitchen table and stared at the letter. His knuckles tightened as he read the breakdown. Unpaid dues, fines, legal fees, administrative costs, even a $75 charge for processing. Leah stepped into the room with her laptop and a mug of tea. Leah, you're pale. What happened? He slid the letter across the table. Her eyes moved rapidly as she read, her face darkening with every line. Leah, they're threatening to take our house. Daniel, she escalated. She got a lawyer. Karen hadn't just kept the pressure on, she'd passed the baton to someone even more dangerous. Gregory Landon wasn't just any attorney. He was the HOA's bulldog, known for turning $200 violations into lawsuits that crippled families and scared neighborhoods into silence. Daniel picked up the phone and called the number at the top of the letter. After a few rings, a stern voice answered. Gregory Landon on phone. Landon and Associates. Daniel, this is Daniel Reece, Pine Grove Lane. I received a demand letter. This is a mistake. Gregory, matter of fact, if you've received the letter, then your account is seriously delinquent. I recommend resolving it immediately to avoid property encumbrance. Daniel, there's no contract. We never agreed to join in HOA. This annexation was done behind closed doors. Gregory, not relevant. Once the county accepted the filing, jurisdiction was extended. All affected properties are subject to the association's authority. That includes yours, Daniel. But the notices were invalid. No warning periods. No hearing. Gregory, if you want to dispute, you're welcome to do so in civil court. We will proceed with a lien on day 6. Click. Gregory Landon didn't argue. He didn't threaten. He promised. Daniel leaned back, his mind racing. There were no raised voices, no warnings. Just a quiet declaration that they were about to be buried in legal concrete. Leah pulled out her phone and looked up real estate attorneys. Leah, we need someone fast. They met with an attorney 2 days later. Melissa Grant, a young but sharp lawyer who had handled 2 previous HOA disputes. Melissa leaned forward across the desk, scanning the documents Daniel brought. Melissa, the annexation was filed legally with the county. That gives the HOA power, but it doesn't mean they're following their own rules. She flipped through the bylaws. Melissa, this clause here requires a due process hearing for any fines above $200. I'm guessing you didn't get one. Daniel, not a word, just bills. Melissa, then we've got leverage. They skipped steps. That could invalidate the fines, but their lien threat, it's real. If they file it, it'll damage your title and credit even if you win later. Melissa made one thing clear. Their best defense was document everything, every notice, every photo. Every time Karen walked by with her clipboard. Daniel had already done hundreds of files, neatly labeled. Melissa, that could save you. If this goes to court, we show a pattern of procedural abuse. That night, Daniel stood in the driveway, staring up at the porch swing. It had become a symbol, not of comfort, but of control. Every time it swayed in the wind, it reminded him what they were fighting for. Leah stepped beside him. Leah, she's trying to break us, quietly, legally. Daniel, she picked the wrong family. Just then, headlights appeared at the end of the road. A silver sedan pulled into Tom's driveway. Daniel watched as Tom stepped out and gave a sure wave. Daniel walked over. Daniel, she's bringing in the lawyer now. Tom, I figured she would. She's scared. She knows people are waking up. He pointed across the street. Tom, the Johnsons, got hit with a $1,200 bill last month. They were planning to sell. Now, they can't. Karen wasn't just enforcing rules, she was choking homeowners, draining them with fees until they folded or fled. But Daniel wasn't folding, and he wasn't fleeing. He was getting ready for the next move. The next HOA board meeting was scheduled for 6 p.m. sharp at the local community center. Daniel and Leah arrived at 5:45, hoping to get seats near the front. But the room was already buzzing. Fold-out chairs lined every inch of the space, and more residents kept filtering in, faces tight with frustration. At the front of the room sat a long table draped with a white cloth. Karen Stokes, perfectly groomed and surrounded by 3 board members, presided in the center like a politician before a campaign speech. Karen tapped the microphone. Karen into mic. We will begin promptly and proceed with decorum. Please remember, we are here to preserve the integrity and value of Willowbrook. The first 20 minutes were a scripted slideshow of budgets, landscaping reports, and vague compliance updates. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, then Karen moved to the final item. Karen, public comment will begin now. Limit your remarks to 2 minutes. Daniel stood. Karen barely looked up. Karen, name and address, please. Daniel Reece, 217 Pine Grove. I have documents showing the HOA has violated its own enforcement protocols, specifically the clause requiring written warnings and due process hearings before fines over $200. Karen, that's your interpretation. The board has reviewed your concerns and found no fault. Daniel, who's on the board? Exactly, your cousin, your husband's friend, who decided my swing and my truck were a threat to the neighborhood. Karen, I see, you're bordering on inappropriate. Mr. Reece. Daniel didn't back down. He pulled out a stack of copies and handed them to the front row. Daniel, I brought proof, notices with no prior warnings, timestamps from my security footage, violation letters that contradict your own bylaws. He paused. Daniel, this isn't enforcement, it's extortion. A murmur rippled through the room. Karen slammed her gavel. Karen, order. If this continues, I will end public comment. But another voice rose. It was Barb Peterson, a retiree in the 3rd row. Barb, she fined me for $100 for having a patriotic flag in my window on Memorial Day. And then Tom Wells stood up, lifting a binder. Tom, I've got a file too. 9 violations in 2 months. I checked every single one against the HOA documents. None had legal footing. Karen's face flushed. She reached for her gavel again. But before she could speak, a young father in the back stood up holding a baby. Father, she fined us for chalk drawings on our sidewalk. Sidewalk chalk. My daughter's 4. Karen shouted into the mic now, her composure slipping. Karen, this is not a mob, this is a legal organization. We have structure. But she didn't see the woman standing near the wall with her phone raised, recording the entire meeting. The video captured everything. Karen interrupting. Karen dismissing concerns. Karen losing control. Karen on video. We are not required to accommodate your feelings. These rules exist for a reason. 20 minutes later, Karen abruptly ended the meeting and stormed out. Her board followed in silence. Outside, the crowd lingered in the parking lot. Daniel stood near his car, arms crossed. Neighbors gathered around him like embers drawn to a flame. Leah, people are ready. Dan, they just needed someone to speak first. Tom, she's done this for years. I've watched good folks move out because of our games. Maybe it ends with us. Daniel looked up at the quiet evening sky and nodded. Daniel, then let's give her a taste of her own system. The next morning, Daniel uploaded the recording of the meeting to a local neighborhood group on Facebook. By evening, it had over 1,500 views. Comments rolled in. She tried finding us for a bird bath. We need a vote to remove her. Finally, someone stood up to her. Karen, in typical fashion, responded the only way she knew how, by doubling down. Daniel woke up the next day to find a bright orange notice posted on his front door. Notice of lien filing. HOA delinquency totaling $3,765. Karen had gone nuclear. Daniel paced inside the house, the paper trembling in his hands. Leah, this is real now. Daniel, she wants to break us. But she made one mistake. Leah, what? Daniel, she put it in writing, every step. Karen had overplayed her hand. The video had made her infamous in the neighborhood. The documents were piling up. The notices, the threats, the forged filings, they were no longer rumors. They were evidence. And Daniel was ready to use them all. The game was no longer between one homeowner and an HOA. It was between a woman clinging to control and a community finally waking up. By the end of the week, the entire Pine Grove neighborhood had seen the video. Karen's gavel-pounding tantrum was now a local meme. But while the internet laughed, Daniel and Leah were still staring at a legal nightmare. The lien notice was real. Their property now had a cloud hanging over it. If they tried to refinance, sell, or even apply for a home equity loan, this lien filed by the HOA through Gregory Landon's office would stop everything cold. Leah quietly, she really filed it. She's trying to suffocate us. Daniel, she's not just trying, she's getting away with it. They rushed back to Melissa Grant's office, the attorney, who had already warned them this could happen. She glanced over the newest paperwork and set it down. Melissa, okay, this is bad, but not unbeatable. It's what HOA letters like this do. They file liens quickly because most people don't fight. But if we can prove the violations were issued without due process, the lien won't hold up in court. Daniel, how long would that take? Melissa, could be weeks, could be months, depends on the judge, but there might be another angle. She flipped to a page from the annexation records Daniel had pulled from the county website. Melissa pointing. See this date? This form was filed with the county clerk 2 weeks after the official annexation. Filing, Leah, what does that mean? Melissa, if they made changes after the initial filing without proper public notice or a vote, it could be grounds for challenging the annexation entirely. Daniel leaned forward. Daniel, so we'd be proving that Karen didn't just break her own rules, she may have forged legal documents. Melissa, exactly. And if we get that to stick, not only does the lien go away, this HOA might lose its grip over your entire street. The next day, Daniel and Tom drove down to the county clerk's office, an old beige building with peeling tile and the smell of overworked printers. Behind the counter sat a clerk in her 60s named Marla, who wore readers and kept a thermos of tea beside her keyboard. Daniel, hi, I'm looking for public filing records on a zoning annexation for Pine Grove Lane about 3 years back. Marla raised an eyebrow. Marla, you're not the first asking about that this week. She slid a manila folder across the desk. Daniel and Tom opened it. Inside were 2 documents with the same header, both titled Willowbrook HOA Annexation, Pine Grove Expansion. One was stamped on May 14th. The other, nearly identical, was stamped on June 2nd. Tom, wait, why 2? Marla, this one here's the original, she said, pointing to the May filing. This other one was an amendment. Looks like they added properties. Daniel's eyes froze. Daniel, they added ours. And then he saw at his address scribbled into the margin in different handwriting, with a note that read, added by board consensus, no vote required. Daniel, did they file this amendment properly? Marla shook her head. Marla, not without a new public notice. This one should have triggered a refiling process. I don't see that anywhere here. Daniel took a photo, then another, every page, every stamp. Back at home, he sent everything to Melissa. Her reply came within the hour. This is exactly what we needed. They cut corners. It's fraud. Karen didn't know it yet, but she'd just thrown gasoline on her own fire. The next morning, Melissa filed a formal complaint with the county recorder's office and requested an emergency review of the Willowbrook HOAS annexation. Daniel also submitted a fraud complaint to the State Department of Consumer Protection, attaching the altered documents and highlighting the timeline inconsistencies. Meanwhile, Tom organized a block-wide meeting without Karen. 20 families gathered in Daniel's backyard. Some brought iced tea. Others brought boxes of paperwork and stories. Tom addressing the group. We were all lied to. She filed fake annexation documents to pull us under her control. And now she's using that to fine and threaten us. It's time we pushed back together. One by one, people stepped forward with their own violations. Photos, emails. A woman named Jeanne had been fined for excessive wind chimes. A single dad named Luis was fined for children's toys visible from the street. Daniel looked round the group. Daniel, I'm working with an attorney. And if you want to join, we can file a class action. It doesn't matter how long she's run this place. What matters is she broke the law. Later that evening, Karen's Facebook post went live. Attention Willowbrook residents. A small group of non-compliant homeowners are trying to dismantle the order we've worked hard to maintain. Don't be misled by rogue agitators. It got only 2 likes, both from board members. By midnight, Daniel's video showing the altered annexation documents had been shared over 4,000 times. And in every comment thread, one word kept appearing: fraud. Karen had pulled every lever of control she could find. But now, the whole system was starting to shake. And the cracks, they were spreading fast. While the community rallied and Melissa prepared a case strong enough to shake the very foundation of the Willowbrook HOA, Daniel kept digging. He couldn't sleep. Even with a lawsuit in motion and neighbors backing him, something still gnawed at him. Something wasn't adding up. Daniel to Leah. Karen's power isn't just coming from the board or the law firm. She acts like she owns more than her house, like she owns the street. Leah, she does act like that. Like she's not just enforcing rules, she's protecting something. Daniel fired up the county assessor's database again. Late into the night, he started looking through every parcel on Pine Grove Lane. It was slow work lot by lot, but when he got to lot 219, something strange jumped out. The registered owner wasn't listed as a person. It was their company, Glen Rock Management, LLC, and when he searched that name, his jaw tightened. The registered agent for Glen Rock, Karen Stokes. The next morning, he brought the file to Melissa's office. She scrolled through the printouts, her brow furrowed. Melissa, well, that changes everything. If Karen owns Glen Rock, and Glen Rock owns that lot, and that lot was included in the HOA's expansion, Daniel, then she didn't just gain control through board votes. She added her own company's property to the annexation. She essentially voted herself into power twice. Melissa, she manipulated the annexation to favor herself, and if she didn't disclose that to the board or the county, Daniel, that's conflict of interest, and it might be criminal concealment. The twist sent shockwaves through the neighborhood. Daniel and Tom presented the new findings at a private community meeting. This time, they weren't just talking about fines or forged notices. They were exposing something bigger: hidden scheme to secure long-term power and financial control over Pine Grove. Tom stood in front of the group with a whiteboard, tapping the diagram. Tom, Karen used a shell company, Glen Rock Management, to quietly acquire 2 empty lots at the edge of Pine Grove 5 years ago. Then, when the HOA filed the annexation, she included those lots to claim majority territory ownership. Leah, she pretended it was for landscaping rights, but it gave her a permanent board majority. Jeanne softly, she rigged the vote before it even started. Daniel had even found Glen Rock's founding documents. Karen had been the sole manager, no board members were listed, no financial disclosures made. When Melissa saw them, she sent a short email to the county district attorney's office. Subject line: request for fraud investigation. Willowbrook HOA, Karen Stokes. That same day, Karen showed up in person. It was just before dusk when Daniel opened the door and saw her standing on the porch, face flushed with stress, eyes sharp. Karen coolly, I'm here to inform you that your continued defamation of my character is being documented. Daniel calm, we're not defaming you, Karen. We're just finally seeing the truth. You never disclosed Glen Rock. You never gave people a chance to vote. You used your company to seize control. Karen stepping closer. You think you're going to win? You think anyone's going to back you once the legal bills start piling up? Daniel, they already are backing me. And no one's scared of you anymore. Karen glanced past him, noticing the small crowd forming across the street. Tom, Leah, Jonna, Luis, others, all watching. She stepped back, her voice lower now. Karen, you don't know how this works. You think the county's going to help you? You're nothing but noise to them. Daniel, we'll see about that. She turned and left. No clipboard, no gavel, just silence. The next morning, Daniel received a call from Melissa. Melissa, excited. We got a call back. The county recorder has placed a temporary administrative freeze on Willowbrook's ability to file further liens. Daniel, you're serious. Melissa, they're opening an investigation. And so is the Department of Consumer Protection. Glenrock's filings, they flagged it. It's now a matter of public interest. Within 48 hours, Karen's quiet power began to crumble. The local news picked up the story. HOA president accused of illegal annexation scheme. Karen refused to comment. But the truth no longer needed her voice. It had found its way out and it was loud. And what was once just a porch swing fine had become the start of something much bigger. Karen Stokes had ruled Willowbrook with a smile and a clipboard for nearly 5 years. But in the days after the Glenrock revelation, her control slipped faster than even she could grasp. Local reporters parked near her home. Her neighbors, once silent and obedient, now crossed the street to avoid her, and the once proud pink windbreaker she wore like a badge, now it only reminded people of the control they never agreed to. 2 weeks after Melissa's formal fraud complaint, a letter arrived at the Reece home, this one from the County Office of Administrative Review. Daniel opened it slowly. Inside, we are suspending Willowbrook HOA's annexation authority pending further investigation. All active Pine Grove violations, liens, and enforcement actions are to be frozen immediately. Leah read it twice. Leah, she can't touch us anymore. Daniel, she never could. She just made everyone believe she could. Word spread quickly. The class action suit, once a dream discussed in Daniel's backyard, had grown into a formal petition signed by 23 households. Melissa filed it that same week. Melissa to Daniel with the Glenrock evidence, the unlawful filings, the fake notices. Karen and the board are vulnerable. If we win this in court, we can have the annexation voided entirely. Daniel and the lien, Melissa, gone, just like the rest of her smoke and mirrors. Karen, ever defiant, made one last move. She tried to hold an emergency board meeting. She printed flyers. She sent out emails. She posted laminated signs around the neighborhood calling it a special compliance crisis session. Only 2 people showed up. One of them was her cousin, who didn't speak. The other was a confused neighbor who thought it was a potluck. The meeting ended in 15 minutes. No new rules. No votes. No gavel. Meanwhile, Daniel took a different route. He didn't just want to win in court, he wanted the community to stay strong. Together with Tom, Leah, and several others, they proposed a new idea, an independent neighborhood council. No dues, no fines, just open communication and shared resources. A place where neighbors could actually talk without fear of surveillance or sudden bills. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't official, but it was real. And the turnout, bigger than any HOA meeting Pine Grove had ever seen. 3 months later, the final court hearing arrived. Inside a packed courtroom, Karen sat with her lawyer, stiff and silent. On the other side, Daniel sat beside Melissa, holding Leah's hand. Behind them sat rows of neighbors. Melissa presented the Glenrock documents, the mismatched signatures, the missing public notices, and the footage of Karen shutting down residents at meetings. When Karen was asked to testify, she declined. The judge reviewed the evidence quietly for nearly 10 minutes before speaking. Judge, this court finds that the annexation of Pine Grove lien into Willowbrook HOA was performed in violation of county notification statutes and with substantial procedural misconduct. The court hereby nullifies the annexation. A pause, Judge. All related fines, liens, and penalties are declared void. The room exhaled. Karen didn't look up. Daniel did. And he smiled. Karen resigned quietly 2 days later. No speech, no post, just a note on the HOA's website. Effective immediately. I am stepping down from my duties. I wish the community well. The pink windbreaker was never seen again. Months passed. The porch swing remained still creaking in the wind. The lien was erased. Glen Rock management was dissolved by the state. And Pine Grove Lane, it changed. Yards grew a little wilder. Sidewalk chalk returned. Neighbors waved again. Without fear, without fines. Daniel stood outside one afternoon with Tom, both sipping iced tea. Tom never thought a porch swing would spark a revolution. Daniel grinning. She gave us rules and silence. All it took was one no to wake everybody up. Karen built her empire on control. But she lost it to something she never expected: truth, community, and one man who refused to stay quiet. And for the first time in a long time, Pine Grove Lane finally belonged to the people who lived on it.